One man, one mission, to rid the world of chronic anxiety once and for all. The anxiety guy, Dennis Simsek, shares his personal transformation from living a life filled with overwhelming worry to becoming a full-fledged positivity machine, a leading authority in generalized anxiety. Dennis gets to the truth of your mental health challenges and sets you on a path to transforming each and every area of your life. Here he is, the one and only, the anxiety guy.
Warriors, welcome to episode number 68 of the Anxiety Guy podcast. I'm Dennis Simsek, and today we're talking about the amygdala. We're talking about turning your panic switch off once and for all. And in order for that to happen, we have to understand what part of the brain, in fact, triggers this panic. Now, we do know that worry and anxiety comes from the prefrontal cortex in our brain. And if that's the case, then panic comes from the amygdala. You've probably heard of this word before. It's a part of your brain that's responsible for the fight or flight response. Now, the amygdala, this is something that, when I started to understand, instead of live in a world of reaction, instead of thinking that with every thought I have to react in a certain way, with every emotion, I have to react in a certain way. I changed that. And what I started to understand was this. My subconscious mind held all my memories, all my decisions from the past, held all my thoughts. Now, what was truly happening in my life during panic disorder and all these panic attacks was that I was getting a thought or a feeling and I was instinctively responding, just like I was every single time before that. So whatever was familiar, my mind said, we need to go in this direction. But the truth was that with every thought or every emotion, my subconscious mind was asking me the very question, what do I do in this situation? It wasn't telling me what to do. It was asking for guidance from my conscious mind. And that's something that I truly needed to understand. Let's think about this in terms of a crying baby. A crying baby, when a crying baby starts bawling their eyes out, starts crying, the first thing we do is we go to the crib, we pick them up, we pat them on the back, we tell them everything's going to be okay, and then we're okay. Right? Everything calms down, the baby goes to nap. What we wouldn't do is we wouldn't start yelling, when that baby starts crying. We wouldn't start acting the same way. So in the same manner, when your emotions, when your thoughts are going out of control and you're feeling these negative automatic thoughts and catastrophic thinking pops in and mind reading, your mind is asking you, what do we do in this situation? It's not telling you what to do, it's asking you what to do. Now, the easy thing is to jump to conclusions. That's the easy thing to do. The tough thing is to actually look at the facts and look at the evidence in that situation. To look at the facts and say that panic has never killed us before. We've overcome every panic attack before. We've overcome this situation every single time. A panic attack has never killed anybody, and therefore it will never kill me. Instead of taking the time and consciously, rationally thinking through this, what we tend to do is we tend to do what we've done before, and this is a problem. Now, the amygdala learns from associations. So if there's a certain environment that you find yourself in on a daily basis that's causing you panic, your amygdala switch is going off in that environment because it's associating that environment with something that it needs to panic about. And again, this goes back to the crying baby. This goes back to the puppy you just bought. You need to train the puppy to understand that that environment is nothing to be feared. Now, the other thing we have to understand is that our amygdala can only learn when you are afraid and it is watching. So let's take your subconscious mind for a second. It's always taking notes. It's always in the background. It's wondering what's going on. What kind of action are you going to take? What kind of guidance are you going to give it? Now, we can only train the amygdala when we are in fact in a fearful situation. So if something feels uncomfortable, something doesn't feel right, something feels fearful, then that is the exact thing that we must do. That is where we must place ourselves, and that is where we must start to train this part of us that is in fact reacting in panic each and every time. We must understand that this environment here is nothing to be panicked about. Maybe there was a traumatic event that happened here once, but that doesn't mean that there is a threat around the corner. We must train this part of us. Now, if you stay away from what scares you, your amygdala will believe the same things over and over again. That this place or this person or this situation is in fact a threat, and therefore it should be avoided at all costs. So, this is very, very, very important, guys, because the amygdala only learns from experience. If you run from panic, it learns that you must run to be safe. I'm going to say that again. If you run from panic, it learns that you must run in order to be safe. If you stay where you are, if you accept the feelings, if you ride the wave, if you let the storm pass and you engage as best as you can, if you're in the grocery store, to continue buying your fruits, continue buying your veggies, continue mingling with that person with the sensations in the background, if you hold up a white flag and surrender to the sensations, you are now training the amygdala to believe that that environment, that situation, that person is safe. And there is no need to run. And eventually what's going to happen is these sensations, even if they do show up, they're going to be like a fly buzzing around your face. You won't even pay attention to them. And soon enough, you will not experience these same sensations as before. Now, you'll need to stay with the fear to recondition the amygdala. You've got to stay with the fear. So if you're scared of dogs, the only way to overcome that fear of dogs is to in fact put yourself in a place where there are dogs. Incredible, I know. But this is the way. This is the way. And this is what in CBT we call exposure therapy. Okay? Now, we need to create a new memory through exposure therapy. And the best way we can do that is if we change our behaviors in that moment of panic. We must have a system. We must not go into the fear thinking that, oh my goodness, I'm just going to stay here. No. We've talked about breaking the patterns before. We've talked about the idea of dialoguing with that part of you that is in fact responding in panic. Okay? So I want you guys to picture your panic as being some kind of cartoon character. As most of you know, I like to use Daffy Duck. When panic strikes, Daffy Duck's saying, what do we do right now? Do we run? Do we stay? Do we keep doing what we're supposed to do? Is there a threat around the corner? It doesn't know, and it's asking for guidance. So, we must create a new memory through exposure therapy. With every success that you have, you are building on one and another successful event. And what this means is that you are creating a history of success, okay? A history of success is what the subconscious mind needs to accept this new belief, to accept this new behavior. Now, I'll give you a couple examples in my life, okay? So in my career, in my job, I remember this time where I was on a certain tennis court. Okay, I was coaching tennis, and there I was, and there was a certain tennis court that caused me immense panic. It was court number 1. And every time I walked by it, or every time I stood on court number 1 for a long period of time, I felt myself being triggered by panic. Something was happening. I wasn't aware of it consciously, but something was happening. So every time I was on that court, I tried to release myself. I in fact told my boss, I cannot work on court number 1 because it's too fearful. It's too scary. I had a big panic attack there before. I remember the ambulance coming around. I remember my sensations. I remember my tingly hands. I felt like I was dying. I cannot go there anymore. So by avoiding this, what started to happen was my mind started to group things around what was familiar. So court number 1 turned into court number 2, turned into 3, 4, 5. Next thing I know, all the tennis courts around the world, I feared. I didn't even recognize what was happening, but my mind was grouping things around, okay, that's a tennis court, or for anybody else out there, that's a situation, that's an event right there. We need to avoid everything that resembles that. So it groups things by what's familiar. And that, my friends, is very, very important that we understand. We must get to a place where we train that part of us to understand that the tennis court, the event, the situation is nothing to be feared. It is basically one traumatic event that happened, and that is normal, okay? Because our minds cannot distinguish a real threat from a perceived threat. That's what I realized. Okay, I realized that even though I was not conscious of what was causing this panic, my mind held the memories from the past. And those memories kept playing out over and over and over again. But the problem is that we never take the time to, in fact, expose ourselves to the very things that is causing our panic. What we tend to do is we avoid things. We're in the car, for example, and we get this memory from back in the day that causes some panic. The first thing we tend to do is turn the music louder. We take a different route. We do everything we can to overcome that state right then and there, and that is wrong. We must dialogue. We must grab our elastic bands. We must snap. We must challenge these thoughts. We must replace these thoughts. Remember, the easy thing to do is jump to conclusions. What's going to happen? The easy thing to do is think catastrophically. Okay? The difficult thing to do, and the thing we must do, is start dialoguing with that character. We must learn how to ride the wave. Riding the wave of sensations, riding the wave of panic, letting that storm happen, holding up a white flag and surrendering to those feelings so that we can train that part of us to understand that even when we feel something, this environment, this person is nothing to be feared. This is just something that's playing out over and over and over again. Okay? So we can, in fact, turn our panic switch off. Okay? It's not a complicated answer. It's a very, very simple answer. But it does take courage. Courage means that we have the drive to, in fact, put ourselves in situations that we fear. And by doing this, we can systematically start to desensitize ourselves from that fear itself. Okay? This is very important. I challenge you today, okay, to go out there to find an environment, to find a person, to find a situation that in fact causes you some fear, some panic. And I want you to put yourself in that area, okay, in that environment. And then what I want you to do is start practicing the idea of riding the wave, to start dialoguing with that part of you that thinks that there's a threat, that thinks that this should be feared, that you should run from this. Okay? I want you to hold up a white flag and do the best you can to start becoming mindful of what's in your outside world and eliminate the focus from your inner world. Okay? So sensations might be happening, thoughts might be happening, emotions might be happening, there might be a certain behavior that your mind is telling you to do, but you are not fighting those things. You are just replacing those things. We cannot fight these things and say, today's the day where I turn my panic switch off. We cannot do that. We must go in with a plan. The plan, my friends, is to ride the wave. So I challenge you today to ride the wave, to turn your attention external, to turn your attention to something narrow in the external world, to pull your attention from those catastrophic thoughts, to in fact become the person you were meant to be on this planet, to share your skills, to share your passions, to share your drives with other people. You've got amazing hidden skills and talents that the world needs. And in order for you to bring those out, you've got to begin exposing yourself to those situations and events that cause you fear. You need to expose yourself to those things. Accept this new belief, okay? This is the truth, my friends. I love you so very much. Thank you so much for being a part of this podcast episode, everybody. If you have any questions, head over to anxietyexit.com, and I will see you in the next podcast episode. Bye, guys.
Thanks for being an important part of the Anxiety Guy podcast community. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a positive rate and review. If you're searching for further support on your road to recovery from anxiety, head over to anxietyexit.com and take part in the powerful End the Anxiety program based around the CBT model. If you're searching for a more one-on-one approach, you can sign up now for personal coaching sessions with Dennis via Skype. Remember, you are more than anxiety. See you in the next episode.